Oh, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of You Are the Guide. So, today we actually have a very special episode because it is the first episode where I am talking about sexuality. And today I want to share a little bit more with you about my journey discovering my sexuality. And it's an ongoing journey I'm still in that process. And there's two main reasons of how I was inspired to record this episode. The first one is because I recently watched the movie Poor Things I went to the theaters. It's a movie with Emma Stone. And it just inspired me to talk about it because that movie, I don't want to like ruin it for anybody, but it talks a lot. It takes you through the journey of the way that I perceive it, the journey of sexual development. And what I noticed being in the theater with strangers is the level of shame that many people were feeling and how some people were walking out of the theaters or it was too much. And I just feel that it's something that it's important to talk about. And the other thing, it's because years ago, I uploaded some videos on my YouTube regarding my journey of coming out after being married with a man. And I had comments there that I had never read because I abandoned my YouTube for years. So as I was reading those comments, it inspired me to start a conversation. And now that I have the podcast to share with you a little bit more about my journey. Now, something that I do want to say is that know that what I'm sharing with you is my personal journey. In no way do I assume that everybody experiences their journey with their sexuality the same as me. I don't think there's better or worse. Everyone's journey is very unique. And just know that I also don't hold all of the knowledge regarding the topic of sexuality. I'm not here trying to educate around that topic. More than anything, I'm trying to share my story, share a little bit of my perspective and how I've experienced that. And also share the things that have helped me. It may not help everybody and it may not apply to every situation. So it's very important to know that because sometimes you hear things online and instead of helping you, they could trigger you because you're like, okay, why did it happen like that for them and not for me? And just know that I'm only sharing my story. And also because we are talking about the topic of sexuality, it is only normal for emotions to come up. It can be emotions of shame. It can be emotions of maybe not shame, even like, oh, curiosity is like, wow, I'm learning something new. Or sometimes even just clarity on, I don't agree with that. And now I have more clarity on what my beliefs and my opinions are. And all of it goes. It's totally okay. I hope in some way this episode inspires you to either just connect more with yourself or maybe offer a new perspective around the topic. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about the movie. So first, I want to say I really enjoyed the movie. I think that it's different. That's the only way I can describe it to people. I'm like, it's different. I cannot even tell you how, like, I don't know how to explain it because I'm like, it's not set up in this world. I don't think it's like a different world. I don't know. And the only thing that's stayed with me is that I was witnessing somebody develop and develop in general and evolve as a human being, but also discovering sexuality. And I was able to witness how before the world tells us to have shame about our bodies or about our sexuality or enjoying sexuality or discovering sexuality, there's this level of genuine curiosity where we don't have any shame around it until we learn that maybe we should, because that's the way that the world works right now. And then we start putting those layers. And one thing that was very interesting is witnessing people in the theater feel like first you could feel, I don't know if you can relate to that, but the vibe get a little awkward in certain scenes. But then seeing people walk out, like some people were like, I didn't sign up for this, or they were not expecting it to be so much about sex. And they were leaving the theaters, which there's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes you know where your boundary is, or you don't feel comfortable watching certain things with certain people. And it's good that people respected themselves and walked out. But it just confirmed to me that what I was feeling was right of we feel so uncomfortable talking about sex. And for some reason, I carry a lot of shame around my body throughout the years. I'm somebody that's learning to be able to regulate my nervous system more. I have had very big people pleasing tendencies. And I do carry a lot of shame about a lot of things. But I've always felt very comfortable talking about sexuality. Just talking about it. I've even gotten myself a little bit in trouble because sometimes I'm very open to just be like, and this is what happened, and for some reason I just feel like it's something natural. And I've learned, of course, to always pay attention to how people around me feel. But I know it's not the case for everybody. And something that stayed with me is that when we feel uncomfortable to talk about something, it's usually because our nervous system is not responding positively to that. And sometimes we don't know everybody's journey. It could be because of difficult experience that they've gone through, and it's something to acknowledge. And everybody responds differently to difficult experience. Even the difficult things that I went through, I've responded maybe different than other people, and it's totally okay. But overall, stepping outside of that, I realize, or I feel that the more that we learn to normalize the topic of sexuality in general, sexual preference, either enjoying having sex or not, because it's okay if you don't. And a lot of people are like, I'm just not sexual. I don't care about sex. It's also okay. You don't have to be hypersexual. But just talking about it and seeing it like another thing, the most important thing I believe when it comes to the topic of sexuality, sex, is the respect that we have in understanding that it's a personal thing. I think that we don't have to talk about it with everybody, but we want to remove the stigma around it. And I hope that makes sense. Because I have met so many people that the moment that you mention something, even what I said now, like, it's okay to not want to have sex all the time. It's like, oh, right? Like, oh my God, I thought there was something wrong with me. Or the opposite of it's like, it's okay to like sex. And it's like, oh my God, yeah, right? Like, it's normal, right? Because we don't talk about it. So we're all thinking that the way we experience sexuality may be wrong, when it's not necessarily the case. As long as we are adults having sex with another adult and at the same time having their consent, it's nobody else's business to know more about it unless you want to share it. And at the same time, it's okay to experience it in the way that you want to experience it. That's my belief around that. And then, yeah, so something that I want to share is, I remember when I was there in the theater, sitting there, and a part of me, the more and more I felt people feel ashamed around being there in the theater with the movie, the more that I started to feel ashamed. I was like, oh yeah, maybe we are meant to feel a little bit of uncomfortable. And it was interesting. I was just looking at myself of how easy, like, it's almost like, is it the respectable thing to not want to watch this? Is it saying something about me that maybe I do want to watch it? Like, it was like a lot of questions. I was like, I thought I was just going to watch a movie. I didn't know I went to have like a whole personal like examination experience, but it was very interesting. So I don't know if any of you have already watched the movie. I know some people that hated it and they don't like it at all and made them mad. I know there's some people out there that are just looking at for the cinematic thing and they're like going all like about the actors and the cinema or whatever. And I know there's people that just really enjoyed it because of the story and how kind of it all comes together at the end. So anyway, so if you haven't watched it, that there's something else you can add to your list. If you want to try it, you can go watch the trailer and see how, if you feel called to watch it. And if you want to share your perspective with me, you can always do so. You can send me a little message through Instagram and just see how you felt, or leave it in the comments, which is the next thing I want to talk about. So a few years ago, I posted some videos on my YouTube channel regarding my story of with my sexuality, a big part of my story, which, remember, at least in my perspective, I want to say it like this: the story with sexuality will not end until we die. Why? Because at least in my perspective, I just continue to evolve, and it continues to change also based on the stage that I am in life, and the way I felt when I was maybe a teenager, the way I felt when I was a young adult, the way I feel now that I'm approaching 40. Like, it's very different. I don't feel the same about it. I know for some people, when it comes to identity itself or preference, it stays the same. For many people, it changes throughout the years. And then also, like I said, how much you enjoy sex itself changes as you grow and you go through different developmental stages. So anyways, I was sharing my story about that part of my life when I came out, being married to a man, and then coming out and starting to date women. Since that happened, which was, I don't even know how long ago, maybe 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago, I've never dated men again. I've never felt that I wanted to date men. I've never felt a strong attraction to men. And anyways, I'm going to go more into that. But in those videos, people left comments, which I want to read to you and I want to share with you, and I want to use them to start a conversation. And I value each one of those comments because they help me observe myself and be like, oh, like, especially there's one that really gave some good points that I was like, okay, yes. And I really appreciate them. And there's a lot of just beautiful messages of people sharing their story and what they went through. But I want to talk about that. I want to bring that up. So now going back to the story, in that original video, it's still up. You can still watch it. I share that my journey with my sexuality and how, in no way, shape, or form do I believe that everybody's journey is like this. I know in many ways I was privileged to go through the experience that I went to, and I do feel that I was, because I did not have the struggle of being confused when I was younger. When I was younger, I felt attracted to men, especially because not necessarily men, because I wasn't even attracted. I wasn't even, at that point, I wasn't old enough. But when I was young, I would just think of the fantasy that Disney sold me. You know, I need to find my prince. I didn't even think there was another option. It was like, I need to find my prince. I need to find him somewhere. And it needs to be a him, because that's what I've seen. And then I went to high school and I started to have crushes on boys. So I never went through that unfortunate, difficult time where I'm gay and I cannot tell anybody. I didn't go through that. I was in the opposite of, and I think it had to do, now that I've worked so much through a lot of my trauma, and even now recognizing that a lot of that I deal with is complex PTSD, I never allowed myself to have a voice of my own, including to even say or recognize that I could like women. It was almost like, I'm going to do what I'm expected to do because I do what's right. I do what I'm told. Which is what I've been working on recently for so long, is finding my voice and just allowing myself to have my own opinion and not thinking that I need to save the world or that it's wrong for people to disagree with you. But back then, it wasn't even an option. I never saw it as bad, which I shared in the video, that I had my first kiss with a boy around the same time that I had my first kiss with a girl in high school. And it felt exactly the same to me. And I was like, I thought I needed to have like a shocking, like, oh my God, it's wrong to kiss a girl. I feel so bad. I was like, it felt exactly the same to me. Neither better than or worse or special or not special. It was just like, it's a kiss. And I realized very young that I never saw a difference between liking women or liking men, which is a very important point that we're going to get to in one of the comments. So then in that video, I continue to share my story and then saying that I'm dating women. And then I mentioned that I label myself as a lesbian. And the reasoning of why I say that, and I don't know if I feel the same about that anymore, meaning because of what I've been contemplating regarding these comments, is I mentioned in the video, I label myself as a lesbian because in this moment in time, I don't feel any attraction to men. I'm not fantasizing about sleeping with men. I don't go out and even look at men in any way, shape, or form. There's no men in my life. I just don't feel it. And what I do feel is that if I'm dating a woman and that relationship ends, I automatically feel attracted to women, or I want to date women. So to me, it's like, it feels right to say I am a lesbian. But I also mentioned in the video, what if one day that changes? Because I was married to a man. And I did, when I was married to a man, I wasn't necessarily unhappy or I didn't like him. I was just in it 100%, and I enjoyed it. So it leads to this comment that I want to read with you. Once again, I want to tell you that I see the comment that I'm about to share with you as a positive comment in no way, shape, or form. Am I seeing it as negative, or I'm trying to disagree or fight or anything? Because I don't see it like that. I'm actually very grateful. So thank you. And if you are watching this, I appreciate your comment. I find that your comment came with very sincere curiosity and just a genuine and actually possibly very accurate observation. And the comment goes to say, I was listening to your story and just realized you never really used the word lesbian in the title, because the title of the video is coming out after being married to a man. So I didn't say coming out as a lesbian, coming out as bisexual. I just said coming out. So then they go, and I just want to mention this here because I like to be very vulnerable. I'm consciously right now in my learning era about not assuming pronouns. And I catch myself sometimes when I do. So if I ever do catch myself, I will correct myself and even maybe bring it up, because I want to be better at not assuming pronouns. It's a personal interest that I have because I respect people's pronouns. Sometimes I don't know them, and I rather use they, them until I know further. Anyways, the comment continues. I just realized it's about coming out as bisexual because you mentioned falling in love with your ex-husband and also liking women like you like men. I can understand the thing with not wanting a label, but I think that's the actual thing. It's just a way of saying a trait about yourself. People ask you for descriptions not because they have anything against you, but because they want to know some things about you. For example, describing yourself as an orderly person that likes organizing things, cleanliness, a sensitive person, introvert, etc. helps others to guess whether they may be compatible with you or not, which is a good point. I feel that what is being said here is that sometimes having more clarity and describing your sexual preference or who you are attracted to allows other people to get to know you more. And I guess in this case, it makes sense because I decided to talk about this publicly. And I also find that it's even more important to talk about it in your relationships, which I always do. I'm very, 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 very open talking about my past and sexuality with my partners. So they really know where I stand, which is in my perspective, the most important person that needs to have clarity about that, because there's the ones you're actually having sex with. But this is a good point. It's just not sometimes. I don't think it's wrong that I didn't label myself as anything. I don't think also that it's necessarily correct that I would label myself as bisexual. But I want to ask those questions to myself. Why didn't I put those words in the title? That's what interested me about this, is like, okay, that's a good observation. It goes to say, let's see, how it's important to know, because that way you know if you're compatible with somebody, right? Some people may not, and that's why I said, like, if I'm dating somebody, I say it right like I did in the video, and I answer all questions very openly, because I'm not about to ever start a relationship with somebody that doesn't know where I stand and where I am. So especially all of my partners that I've ever had, and especially my partner now that I truly love, she is aware of my past and where I stand with all of this. Anyways, it follows to say, hold on, I lost. If you know yourself, it shouldn't be hard for you to describe yourself to others. In dating, if a woman is a lesbian or bisexual, she's asking you this because she needs to know if you two are compatible or not. And even outside dating, there is a high difference between a bisexual woman married to a man and a lesbian married to a man. If for the latter, I should have many comforting words for the pain that they experience for being forced to do something they didn't feel like doing. For the former, I would not have these feelings. If you were a lesbian who was married to a man, I would look for women who share this experience in hopes of getting support. It would be painful to stumble on your video and realize that you are actually not in this category besides on your experience, but for some reason say you are. And I find here that this is maybe, if anything, that I would disagree with this comment, is that it's very, very difficult to let other people know what they should label themselves as, especially if somebody, when they say, like me, I'm a lesbian, and your nervous system feels aligned with that, and saying to somebody I'm bisexual feels like a lie. I would not do that. I will only say things that feel true to me and my body and my nervous system based on my stories. I would hope that if somebody would come to my video and listen to my story, they would take what applies to them. They would stop the video if they're not liking it, or they would not in any way, how can I say it? Assume that one of the stories is better or worse than the other, because each one has its own trials. That's mainly the only thing I didn't disagree with, because I would never, ever, ever say to somebody, you know what, you're a lesbian. No, you know what, you're bisexual, you're pansexual, because I don't know. I really don't know. And I would always say the most important thing is that how you identify with your sexuality may change over time. Like, it may genuinely change. And I believe that there should be no shame around that. If you feel that you are a lesbian and you felt you were a lesbian, which happens a lot, we don't see that many videos about that, but people that were like, I felt I was a lesbian since I was a kid, and the whole thing, and I dated only, let's say, women, and at some point I fell in love with a man. And so many of the LGBTQ plus community judge them so hard when it's okay, because your sexuality changes with you. In my perspective, it's okay whatever you label yourself as long as you're being honest to the people that you're dating or being intimate with. That's the perspective that I share. And then it says, I'm guessing you have an issue with calling yourself bisexual because you make negative associations with it, like non-monogamy or cheating or whatever. Otherwise, I just don't get why you would use lesbian and not bisexual. That's the comment. So it's very interesting, because in many ways, that last part of what did it say again? I'm guessing you have issues calling yourself bisexual. I think that's actually very accurate, because I mentioned right now, it doesn't feel right in my body. And it is because I have an opinion about that. And my opinion about that, as I was observing, is if I ever feel that I am actively attracted to men, that I actively have a desire to sleep with men, I will not have shame at all to own it and be like, I want to sleep with men. I enjoy sexuality with men. I'm bisexual. And I will not hide it, because for some reason, I don't have, I don't know, I don't feel that shame around owning that. But it feels weird to say it when I'm not feeling it. But I understand where it's coming from, because for many people, it's if you were okay sleeping with one man one time and you enjoyed it and it was good and you wanted to explore more, then you should be forever bisexual. I don't know if that applies. I've met also many people that label themselves as lesbians and they only want to date women. And they have had sex with men, so it's a very interesting thing. And I think that it all goes. Maybe some women go, I used to like men, so I will forever just call myself bisexual. And I understand there's some women and some men, I'm just referring to women, but some men as well, that have never, ever, ever, ever liked the opposite sex and never will. But that's where it gets very flowy, because it's so different for all of us. So what I'm taking more than anything from the whole comment, first, once again, I'm grateful that I have the opportunity to observe myself and ask myself, why didn't I use the word lesbian? Because clearly bisexual doesn't sit right, because I still feel the same. I recorded this 2 years ago and not much has changed. And I haven't dated men in all this time. It still it doesn't feel right to say bisexual, but I do wonder, why didn't I put the word coming out as a lesbian, outside of the fact that my title was already long? And I think there was a little bit of hesitation there. And now what I'm taking more than anything from that comment is how important it is to talk about things like this and have those conversations. I feel that there may be more even shame around saying I'm a lesbian than around saying I'm bisexual, based on what I observe about myself. I'm still processing it, because I just read these comments not that long ago. Some of the other comments here, just to share with you, and of course they're public comments, is let's see here. Let me see what I can find. They quoted what I said in the video. It says, I won't lose my peace over a label, over words. And they said, brilliant. And I guess I did mention that there, which is kind of how I feel now. And I remember I mentioned in the video, if on the outside, somebody looking in and saying to me, you're bisexual because at some point you like men, if that brings peace, because I think I'm rooting more for peace and like relaxation instead of conflict and division. If somebody out there goes, it makes me feel peaceful to label you in my mind a bisexual, I say, go for it. It's okay if you see me as bisexual. As long as right now I'm being honest and truthful with what I feel around my sexuality, and my partner and I are on the same page around that, and we're happy, that is the most important thing. And it goes the same for what I tell my daughter. My daughter is almost 15 years old, and I tell her the same about her sexuality. The last thing in the world is that I would want her to ever suffer because of how I would ever perceive her or the world would perceive her. And I'm trying my best, which sometimes it works as a parent, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we're trying to do too much of the opposite of what we got, and it turns out worse. But I'm trying to just talk about it freely, to give her the space for her to discover who she is, in a world that doesn't always do that, or it does that. Sometimes there's more of the judgment. But yes, so I said that. And I also love that same person after that. They said, brilliant. And they said, I only label my identity as a child of God. And for some reason, because I have a very deep connection with my spirituality and with my beliefs, I really appreciated that. And I'm going to go back to comment on all of these that I've never commented. Let's see. And then there's a very, I really appreciated this comment. Somebody said, I'm a guy who almost got married. I was engaged to my girlfriend. I knew I was different. She finally asked if I was gay, and I then came out. Now we're best friends. It was something I thought I could make go away. It was 15 years ago. I was just dumb and scared mostly. I don't think you were dumb at all. I understand the being scared. And this comment made me smile so big. And this one I had read it because I had left a comment back. This one was 3 years ago. So this video was from 3 years ago. That's beautiful that you guys are best friends now. You never know. I believe in a very deep, sometimes soul connection with certain people that you meet as partners first, and then the relationship, just like with sexuality, it evolves into other things. And sometimes those people becomes one of our best friends. It doesn't always have to be a sexual relationship. And I know something that I believe is that the main difference between a friendship and a romantic relationship is the sexuality. We're all hoping that our partners are our friends. So I just want to say that that's beautiful. And thank you for being open to share your story with us. I know it's not necessarily easy. And like you mentioned, being scared to accept feelings, and especially I know that many people are in situations where those around you do not agree with your sexual preferences. And something that I just want to say about that is that sometimes depending on how those people treat you, sometimes people can still love you and be kind to you and just never touch the topic of sexuality. And for some people, like for the receiving person, let's say the child, if the mother is unable to process it, but they're still treating you well and maybe even mention it, I don't want to know too much about it. For some people that works. For other people, it's like, no, if you don't want to know about that, about my life, then I don't want a relationship. Everyone's different with that as well. But I find that the most important thing is that you find what feels right for you, and that you recognize that it's okay sometimes to let go of people that are being disrespectful, that don't agree with your life, that judge you actively, because nobody deserves that type of abuse. And at the same time, it is okay if you decide to have a very close relationship, loving relationship with maybe a parent that doesn't want to talk about your sexual preferences, only if you also feel okay with that. And I see it a lot, and we don't want to ever judge that, because what I have learned is that and by we, I mean my generation, I am a millennial, but I'm almost 40, or I'm 39, turning 40. I find that I look back at my mom and her generation, and they went through a lot. They didn't have the words that we have to describe it. And they sometimes don't know how to deal with everything that they have inside. It's not our responsibility to put up with it. No one, in my opinion, should ever put up with abuse, mental, emotional, or physical in any way. Sometimes our parents are not abusing us, for some of us, in that way, but you can still see their struggle, that they don't have the tools that we have to work on a lot of the things. And I don't see it as it's unfortunate for us, poor us, or, oh, it's unfortunate for them, poor them. I see it, it's just what it is. It's what happened in the evolution of different generations. And it's all like, what are we choosing to do with it? That some of us in certain generations are more self-aware, like even newer generations, Gen Zs, they're doing so much work on themselves in high school. Like, for many of us, we started in our 20s or our 30s. So it's very different for everybody. But this episode kind of took a deeper emotional depths. But I'm glad we're talking about this. I always say, like, I'm recording the episodes and then I even forget some things I say. And then later I'm editing and I'm like, oh, I talked about that too. But yes, let's see if there's any other comment that I can share with you. Just hearing different perspectives. Somebody said that I sound like Alex Voss from Orange is the New Black. I've gotten that before. I was once with a client and we are working, we're having a session. And then she kept looking at me and she said, "Can I ask you something?" Like, it's very, very not related to what we're talking about. And I was like, yeah. It's like, has anybody ever told you that you sound like Alex Voss from Orange is the New Black? And I was like, yes, actually people have told me that. So that's kind of funny. Let's see if there's another comment here. Oh, I actually posted this video in February of 2020. That was 3 years ago. 2020 was 3 years ago. Oh my God, it's gonna be the 3 years anniversary of this video. Okay, let me go back. I'm getting distracted here. Videos, oldest. Okay. Oh, and then I also did a video in Spanish. We'll see if those have any comments. Okay. I did another video called How to Accept That You're Gay, and I mentioned how it's so important to be willing, even though I know it's not necessarily easy, to do the work, the hard work that it takes to accept where we are, accept our preferences, our label, accept not having a label, accept that some people accept us and that some people don't and judge us. But I said that when you accept yourself, it's a lot easier to know what to do with the rejection of the world. And from that, somebody said that point of waiting for others to accept us before accepting ourselves really hit me. I've never heard that side so perfectly. Thank you for making this video, which is awesome. And somebody mentioned that they were listening to the video and fear, shame, and sadness came up, and they appreciate the video. I know talking about this topic is going to awaken a lot. So very interesting. And I think that's another very important point of how sometimes we're waiting for others to tell us that it's okay to be us, that it's okay to speak up, that it's okay to start a new project, like a podcast or whatever, or share your own story on YouTube. Like we're waiting for the world to tell us it's okay to be you, go do it now. And a lot of the times it starts by you taking that step and you saying, it's okay to be me. Go do this now. You're ready. And I'll be here to support you regardless of how others may perceive you. And if there's acceptance or if there's rejection, you can still create and be yourself with no apology. Remember, as long as we're not taking away other people's freedom, which is very important. Forcing somebody, if you're gay, for example, forcing somebody to kiss you or something like that, that's wrong. You're never, ever, ever, you can never take away somebody else's freedom or assume like, oh, I thought you liked me. No. But when you're not taking away anybody's freedom, when you're respecting others and who they are in life and what they're choosing, it's okay to be yourself. It's okay to own yourself and be yourself. And if being yourself is what society plots, then that's beautiful. Because I hear so many people say that sometimes I feel bad because I think I got it easy because I'm straight and I'm in a loving marriage and I haven't struggled. And it's this feeling of I feel shame around that. And I don't think anybody should feel that way. So anyways, that was a lot of just blabbing and conversation on this topic because I want to make more videos about this and I want to bring some guests. But some of the takeaways from this video, first is knowing that it's okay to feel shame when we bring up the topic of sex or sexuality because it's something that we've been told it's taboo. And that's what I learned with Poor Things with that movie. So if you haven't watched that movie and you want to see it, go for it. Let us know what you think. And the other thing is that it's okay to disagree with people and for people to have different opinions and use what other people tell you to look at yourself. And sometimes it's like, you know what, that part that you said, no. That other part that you said, yes, like that really hit me. And not because you have to change because others say so, but because sometimes it helps you to get to know yourself better. As of now, just kind of closing the topic, I still stand behind not always having a label to the world, but always being very open and transparent with your partners. I think that is important. Never, never, ever, ever lying or hiding things to a partner, especially somebody that you want to build something beautiful with, and making sure with those people you're in the same page. everybody else in the world doesn't understand, it's okay. But at least with those close to you that are valuable, that you're trying to build with, you want to make sure that you're on the same page with that. And at the end of the day, for me, acceptance, being respectful, being virtuous when we're dealing with others, in hopes that that is what we're putting out there in the world, and maybe in the same way, it's hopefully what we'll receive, is the most valuable thing. If you have any comments about this video, I would love to hear them. If any of you that commented want to share, especially that long message, once again, I appreciated it. I appreciate your point of view. It helped me observe myself, which is very, very good. But any additional comments, put them on my YouTube video or send me a little message. I hope all of you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will see you soon.